everyone. Welcome to this holiday edition of Vault Hours. I am so glad that you joined us. I know that this is not our usual kind of timing for this Vault Hours, so really glad that you were able to make it. My name is Casey, and I'm joined with my wonderful colleague Ryan, who chose that eclectic holiday music for you this morning.
It gets
Um,
worse.
it gets worse, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Amazing. And we're also joined with a special guest, Jason, who is an avid member of our Bitwarden community. A graduate of Georgia Tech Institute of Technology. He served as the director of security at a startup and is currently developing cloud computing capabilities for a local corporation. So we're super excited to have him on board today. Great. So the agenda today, Ryan's going to run through our November release and some of the updates for that. And then Jason is going to give you a special presentation on risk management. And then we're going to jump into some budgeting, specifically budgeting for Bitwarden. As a quick reminder, this is kind of a collaborative session, so you're always feel free to join on screen or just note in the chat that you have a live question or comment, and we'll make sure to get you up here. But you can always just put your questions or comments in Ask a Question pane or put it in the chat. See, are there any initial questions? I know we had some on the questions pane. I think we went through and answered those already.
Yeah, it looks like we got through most of them already. Thank you, Robert, for your feedback on this. Um, let's see. One of the ones I wanted to talk about was the um, notice to scheduled maintenance. So last night, some of you might have noticed that we actually had a hotfix run through, and I'll be talking about that in just a second because it enabled a new feature that had been slightly delayed and actually didn't make it into this presentation. But I'm excited to talk about it. We'll be making announcements about it on Monday. So we do our best, but when stuff is ready and the team is ready to push it through, we react to that. So especially for hot fixes of that type.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Great. Well, we'll answer questions along the way too if you think of any. And with that, I'll hand it off to Ryan for a little bit on the November release.
All right. So yeah, I just hop right into it, don't
I
I?
know.
It's all good. So the November release, we launched it last week, and there we hot fixed in addition to it this week. So there's an update to all of our clients right now that's out, except for the browser extension. You're going to start seeing the mobile one start propagating out to app stores here soon. But we just had a small update to the user interface. You can see over here on the right, maybe if you squint at your screen because the screenshot is small. Sorry. But we moved some features around in the Web Vault for organization. So now there's like a reporting tab and a billing tab, just getting ready for some of our bigger UI updates coming next year. And speaking of getting ready for future features, our login window now, if you go to the Web Vault, it asks you for your email address first, and then you will, hit enter, and then the second screen will ask you for your password. And this is for the future login process, one of which just went live last night, and I'll talk about that in a second. The new dark theme for mobile. So mobile's already had a dark theme, but we're now matching the Web Vault. It was called Solarize was the term that we had for it. It's a little bit of a different color. You can see it here in the screenshot. That's going to be matched now over on mobile. And for people who have a lot of Vault items, 1,000, 2,000 items, we have done some pretty impressive back-end work to improve the caching and decrypting of all of that. So you should, if you're one of these people, you'll see major improvements in the performance of that. So that was really cool and exciting. If you want to see these release notes, bitwarden.com/help over on the top left in the column, you'll see the release notes section there. We have all of our details there and links to all the pages for everything here. There are a few other updates that I didn't include here that probably aren't very applicable to many people here, but I will talk about the hotfix, and sorry I don't have any slides prepared for this just yet. We had talked about it in the last Vault Hours, but now if you guys wanted to follow along and go to vault.bitwarden.com, which is how you access the Web Vault, and you go to log in, you will see a new button called Log In with Device. And if you have your mobile app on your phone and you're already logged in there, if you click that button, that Login with Device, it will send an alert to your phone where you can just simply approve it and then get into your web vault without having to enter your master password, giving you a passwordless experience. It's especially enhanced if you are using, for example, biometrics to log into your phone rather to unlock your vault. So it's a really neat and easy way to get into your web vault and make some changes to your settings or anything like that without having to remember your 7-word passphrase for your master password. So really excited to share that. We will we will be posting about that on Monday. So you guys are getting the scoop on this. We're doing a news release, blog post about it. But you should see that there. And Robert, I see you're not seeing it. If you go to vault.bitwarden.com, you have to enter your username first, and then go to the second screen, and then you'll see login with master password, login with device, and then enterprise SSO as your options. So really, really, really excited to have that, and we're going to be enhancing our passwordless experience features moving forward, and you'll see that coming to other clients as well. Okay, you only see the login with master passwords. I actually I was using it this morning. I have screenshots, like the actual website. I'll double check it right now. And no, I'm looking at it right now on my own screen on my own browser. It's there. So if you're using a self-host instance, the self-host update hasn't gone out yet. This is only for the clouded web vault. Okay, and that's it for the November update. Okay, Jason, I'm going to unmute you here.
Okay, thanks for having me today. Um, as Casey mentioned, all right, I'm an enthusiastic Bitwarden user. I have a lot of opinions, some of them are even worth something, and I'm really grateful to have an opportunity to talk today. I am the faculty brat, but my parents were both, yeah, just perfect. Both my parents were mathematics professors, and I tend to be sort of a advising professor myself, it seems to me, with my staff. What I want to talk about today is one of my soapboxes, which is thinking about risk management. When I look at the Bitwarden subreddit and the people that people are worried about, I think a lot of people haven't really thought through what risk management really means. And I want to talk about it in a general term here, and then we'll touch bases at a lower level with what it means for a password vault. So the first point here is like, what is at risk? Like, what are you trying to protect? Okay, and you'd be surprised that a lot of times people don't understand what it is that's important. How is it at risk, or what I call threat surfaces? And this is also important because you can't you have to decide what it is you're trying to protect from. The next one, how much, is kind of weird. How much will you do to reduce risk? The example I'd like to give there is I used to work at a company, a fairly small company that had a multi-millionaire for the CEO. And there were some days that he would come into the office with a bodyguard. You know, guy's obviously got a gun under his suit jacket and everything. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily spend that much money yourself if you were a bodyguard, but he felt certain times at certain places that he really needed that much mitigation. Apply fixes, mitigations is also an important thing. If you were thinking in terms of more general risk, like protecting, your business from theft, you would actually split this into a couple of different categories, and I want to mention it to emphasize that this is a general framework. Theft, you would talk about deterrence, detection, and response. A burglar alarm, nice glass plate doors, a burglar alarm, and having people come on site quickly to reduce risk. And then finally, the last one is something that you have to be aware of, which is how will you recover if you have a loss? And this is something that you always have to think about. And the point is, and this is one of the principal things I want you to understand, is that you cannot eliminate risk. You can reduce it down to a level of comfort, but you cannot get rid of it entirely. And we will talk about that some more as we go through this, but this is one of the big soapboxes I want to impress people. For instance, if we look at you and driving your car, we could say, hey, if you drive your car, you're worried about the car being damaged or being stolen or your own personal safety. How is at risk? There's crash, there's theft, there's hit and run, there's even nuclear attack. And I only say this half jokingly, okay, which is that times people worry about, oh, I want to eliminate risk. Well, I got news for you. There are certain risks that you just simply have to live with. This is how it is in the real world. And this is how it's going to work with your password vault as well. How much do you want to do to reduce risk? Well, you could drive a tank around. Again, what's the level of risk that you're willing to accept? What's the level of cost, the level of inconvenience you're willing to accept? This is a personal decision, and you have to decide where you fall on the spectrum. And of course, there's apply fixes and there's recovery. But the point is, you can apply this model not only just to password managers, but to just about any place in life where you have to manage risk. Next slide. So let's talk about your password, your password manager. What is at risk? It's the services you log into. You don't want people logging into Amazon. You don't want people logging into your crypto manager. You don't want people impersonating you. You don't want people stealing from you. How is it at risk? This bullet point is actually another soapbox that I have, which is that you can forget about your passwords entirely and lose access to a service, which you may, if you're lucky, be able to regain, but other ways be not. Others gaining access to it, obviously, right? So there are two basic risks for your password vault. People so often focus on other people getting into the vault and learning their passwords that they forget about the other one, where you lose access entirely. I like to give an example. I was thinking about this morning in the shower, which is if I lost access to my vault, sure, I could go to most of those services and rebuild the passwords. But which services were they? I've got 200 logins in my vault. I do not have a list of everything that I need to go and fix. The vault has inherent value in and of itself without having to, reset the passwords themselves. Mitigation. What can you do, all right, to reduce the risks? A password manager itself is fundamentally inconvenient. You could use the same password everywhere and get rid of that. So it's two-factor authentication. But then, there at some point, I think we've all agreed, if you're listening today, that we want a password manager and we want to improve our security to some level. And so we're going to talk about the risks and the mitigations. Yeah, thank you, Casey. I agree. I don't mind my password manager too much more, but some people still are hesitant. And then there's recovery. Well, I'm not even going to talk about that. Let's just talk about that as a bad dream. Next slide. The rest of this, I want to talk about basic mitigations, and we should all be aware of those. And these are obvious things for people, but let's just go through this. First of all, don't reuse passwords, okay? Because the number one risk that we have in 2022 of losing our passwords is some service out there which does not store their passwords safely ends up yielding your username plus password combination. Once they do that, they apply that combination everywhere with variations. The other thing that I want to emphasize is that you cannot rely on human memory. Experimental psychologists have known for 50 years that human memory is not reliable. You will forget things, and this is just not a matter of a function of your age. You have the same password every day, and then come down one morning and put your hands on the keyboard and go, I don't remember it. This is just the way human memory works. So you must have a record of everything, not just inside of your memory. However, this comes to the third issue, which is that I love it. I work with that. If you do have that record, you have a new threat service because you have to manage that. This is what backups are about, which is another one of my soapboxes. I probably won't talk too much about that today. To which password managers are our best answer today. And again, like I was saying before, the alternatives are worse. And when it comes to risk management, you can't eliminate risk, but having a password manager is less risk than not having one. And that's my point in terms of the risk management framework that I'm talking about. Now, this is what the first point here is: only use passwords on a secure device. I actually have a rather extreme viewpoint of this. But again, it comes to your risk profile and how much risk you're willing to accept. I argue that if you don't have a secure device, you shouldn't be entering any passwords or credentials on it at all. And what do I mean by secure? It should have patches. Those patches should be up to date. If it's a phone that no longer receives security patches, sorry, you need to pull the SIM card out of it and give it to a women's shelter. You should have exclusive and complete access to it. It shouldn't be shared with other people. It shouldn't be a corporate owned device. It should be completely provisioned by you. All right. If other people actually have an opportunity to put their hands on the keyboard and do things, tilt. You shouldn't actually be putting credentials on it. This goes for physical security as well. If it sits in a shared space, if it's not attended, all kinds of mischief can occur. Do you see the point here? And then operational security. When you use it in a semi-public space like a coffee shop, are you being situationally aware of what's going on around you? This is what you do before you actually install the password manager. This is what you do before you actually even enter any credentials on a device. I have a fairly extreme view of this. If you say, hey, I don't really need to do all that, well, fine. This is risk management. Risk management is about managing risk. You can't eliminate it. I do not advise doing any of these things because this is an easy mitigation you can use to protect yourself. This one is pretty simple. Let's talk about passwords themselves. Never reuse passwords. They all need to be unique. Randomly generate them by machine. People all seem to think they can come up with random passwords in their head. Don't do it. For this kind of similar reason that you can't memorize things, your brain is just not very good for that. The next thing that I want to point out is the use of a passphrase. Random passwords are really great for computers, but sometimes we have passwords that you can't, that you have to type in yourself. You have to copy it from your phone onto a keyboard, or Bitwarden is just not available. This is where a passphrase comes in for use, and we can talk about that if you're not familiar about that. The next thing is two-factor authentication. I argue that you use two-factor everywhere that you can, although it's limited by the services should prove to offer. A lot of them only give you SMS, but I suggest that you use the only one form of 2FA and pick the best type of 2FA that's available for each site, and that includes Bitwarden. The last point here is recovery. There are recovery codes, and there are backups, and there are next of kin. It's not just the fact that Bitwarden could go away one day, although I really doubt that would really happen. There are things that can happen. A spiteful teenager might hit your phone while you're in the shower and delete your vault entirely. You may have a bad change that you push to the vault, and you actually need to find like a really old version to find what you lost. These are all important issues. Backups and recovery themselves are a fairly involved topic. I probably won't talk too much more about that. I just want to make sure that you guys think about it and start thinking about it now. Just to summarize the word salad I gave you, and thanks for listening today. You can't eliminate risk. You have to decide how much risk you're willing to accept. You have to decide the amount of resources and inconvenience. You are responsible for your own security. So many people say, well, what if my vault got hacked? That is an outcome. All right. That is saying, well, what if I got in a car accident? You know what? You probably will get into a car accident one day. The point is managing that risk, how often it occurs, and how you'll manage it when it happens. As I said earlier, a password manager is better than no password manager. A password manager does create new threat surfaces, so you have to deal with 2FA and backups and recovery and all those things. And as I was jumping up and down and yelling earlier, a password manager is no defense against poor OPSEC. You need to start with a secure device, and if you don't have a secure device, you shouldn't be running a password manager. And anybody who says they don't want to use a password manager because they're worried about malware, dodging the central issue, which is pay attention to your malware risk, which is a separate issue from anything that a password manager can do for you. Anyway, Thanks for listening, and thanks so much, Casey, for having me today. That's all.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. This was amazing, and I was so happy to see, password management through the lens of risk management, right? And thinking about there's no way to completely eliminate risk, but what's the best steps to take to s- start chipping away at that. So thank you so much for joining. We are super happy to have you here. Are there any questions from anyone in the crowd while we have Jason on the screen? Okay, I don't think so, but he'll be on the call, so absolutely, you know, he can answer anything that you have.
You can
Um,
also find Jason on our Bitwarden subreddit. He's
oh,
always there with
absolutely.
always the
Yeah,
top answer to everything that we have.
annoyingly present. Yes.
All right, so before we get over to my next subject, I wanted to address a couple of questions. I see a couple about the login with device, so I just want to go through some security measures that the login with device has. It'll all be detailed in the blog that will be posted on Monday. Um, so first thing, and Robert, this might actually be affecting you, is the login with device is only available to recognized browsers. So if you've logged into your account before, and it's recognized by Bitwarden, then that login with device will be available. So if you're using say private mode or incognito windows only, unfortunately you're not going to be able to use a login with device if that's part of your MO because it has to be a recognized device. Secondly, I saw the question here about show three different numbers and ask which the correct number is. We actually are including a fingerprint phrase. So it will pop up with four different words that will be matched to the alert that your mobile phone gets. And you have to choose to approve or deny from there. And you want to make sure that it matches. Finally, you need to have two-factor. If you have two-factor authentication enabled, which you should, this does not bypass two-factor authentication. It doesn't bypass SSO. It's just for simply logging in with as if you were using the master password, but then having to go through all those other steps. There are other number of things that happen with it too, including like encrypting and full end-to-end zero knowledge encryption of the key that goes from one device to the other device. More details will be available on the blog on Monday. Did I answer those questions that people had? You're welcome to put them in the question and answer box, or if you have any other questions, you're also welcome to just drop them in chat, no problem. Yeah, long delays receiving the push notifications. The team is working to reduce those. It should be less than 45 seconds, but you can get it instantly if you refresh your vault. So if you open up your mobile app and refresh the vault, it comes through. So it could just be the additional load. The team is monitoring it right now. So that'll definitely help. Let's take a look at, let's see, on the white paper. Any plans for a white paper along with device? It's not clear if the request is end-to-end encrypted from your browser, and how that encryption is happening, security level encryption, since this transmits your actual account encryption key. If you look in the help article about this, there is a how it works section that details every step that goes into it. Let me go and I can find that and pull it up. How it works. Found it. Okay. I'm putting that in chat right now. Would it be possible to have organization policy prevent users from exporting their vault using non-encrypted methods? That's from Danny. So we're always looking at different policies, and we appreciate your feedback. Definitely put that on the community forum or see if someone already has and upvote it. But right now we have a system where you could turn off people being able to export their vault in general. So you'll have at least that option as an organization. So you would only admins would be able to actually export anything from the organization. Is the new dark mode already implemented for the iPad version? I believe it should be, but I don't know what the status is on all the app stores. I know my phone hasn't updated yet with the new version. You should be looking for the version number would be 2022 dot 11.0, I believe it'll be for the mobile app. So when you see that, that's when you know you have the newest one. Any news about the browser extension? So we are releasing. So right now the browser extension wasn't included in this release. There will be an update in December. It's just going to include some functionality updates, a nice UI update as well. Any of the major changes, such as adding, as you say here, like the multi-account, like account switching, and I mentioned too, like additional vault items and such. That's going to be secondary to Manifest v3. Okay, so I think I got through all of them too now. Now I can actually go into the subject, budgeting for Bitwarden. Anytime you guys have, just feel free to drop questions in chat. So, in case you've seen the next slide, I know there's a delay. It takes a second to come through. All right, it's December 2nd. Wow, it hit me before I was ready for it. So like, yeah, cue my panic because I have all these things that are due by the end of the year. So one of the things that a lot of companies work with, especially the larger company I worked at before, operate on a use it or lose it budget. So if you don't spend it, it's gone. You don't get to roll it over to next year, and you actually might have a lower budget because you had excess for 2023, which is really a bummer. So if you haven't implemented a password manager at work or you're thinking about Bitwarden, you could use what's left of your 2022 dollars to be prepared for 2023 and add 2023 security in. So the best way for you to start with that is really just launching a pilot program. So deploy to a smaller group that might find it very useful. For example, IT or the marketing team, social media managers, they all love Bitwarden. Just to get a feel for it and see how it would work for your company. Good way to test it out. And when you expand to the future for your company and go full company wide, that smaller group is going to be helpful. You're going to have a set of heroes and what do you call them? It's up to my tongue, but um, champions that can help you with that. So it's really awesome to have some people who can help out other employees with it. Eric, I would love to hear your story about your deployment. It sometimes can't be easy because it means a lot of people have to change how they operate on the internet and what they do. Not to mention, trying to get stuff out to manage devices. So I recognize that that's always a fun adventure, as you say. And what's nice about doing a pilot program is that a smaller group is actually really surprisingly affordable. So Bitwarden charges on a monthly basis for per user seat. You can either pay annually or monthly, and it's $3 per user per month for a Teams account, $5 per user per month for an enterprise account. And so if you just want to have, say, 5 people in IT, just work on it, that's $25 between now and the end of the year. So I'm hoping that you have $25 left in your IT budget, maybe, that you could possibly get started with. And then looking at 2023, if you want to add a lot of security to your company, the easiest way to do it is to do password management. It get a lot of security added just from implementing that single solution, which comes in at a lot cheaper than, say, a new hardware firewall, for example. But 80% of cyber attacks are credential related, which is crazy. It's the weakest link. It's definitely, and you'll find that just an ounce of prevention of having a password manager is definitely worth the $9 million in cure, which is what the average cost is for a hack or credential leak. So, yeah, $25 for your pilot program versus $9 million of cost. I think that's quite quite an easy selection there. So if you have any questions or if you have any, if you want to take Bitwarden to work, we're offering a campaign. Casey or Don, if you'd be so kind as to drop in our Bring Bitwarden to Work campaign. There's resources there to help you talk to IT. That could definitely help get that conversation going. So we would really appreciate it. Bitwarden Enterprise is what keeps our lights on. So we're super thankful for you guys taking that to your office.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. And I just dropped the link for Bring Bitwarden to Work in the chat. So this has a lot of great email templates for suggesting Bitwarden to your colleagues, to your leadership team, or your IT department. So definitely something to look into if you're thinking about kind of suggesting Bitwarden for your work environment. And with that, I'm going to hop on over to some blog articles that we posted in the past month that you might be interested. First, being password best practices from our developer community. So we polled a couple of our community spaces and got a ton of responses from developers on their best practice suggestions for password management. And we compiled all of the repeat answers. Oh, sounds like some audio's doing some funky things. There we go.
I got
Um,
it. No, my fault. I invited Don up with him being unmuted.
yeah, no worries. We compiled some of the best answers into this article, so something to absolutely check out. Next is that article that Ryan was just talking to. So, detailing why you should be spending your remaining IT budget on a company password manager. So, this walks you through exactly how to budget for Bitwarden and then step by step how to start a pilot. Next, for 2022, Bitwarden was ranked as the password manager leader for Software Review's Data Quadrant report. So this accounted for both customer satisfaction and then just general, oh, I'm forgetting the word. You can check it all out here in this article. It also kind of details how we rank against some competitors, so has a lot more data around that. So absolutely super interesting. Next, what are organizations in Bitwarden and how you should use them? So, for those who use organizations, you know that this is the main way for securely sharing passwords between users. And so, if you are a personal user, this details exactly how to adopt an organization and share them between maybe family members or team members. Next was an article. So, this is a reoccurring series that we have on industry leaders' security rankings. We've done a couple different categories in the past, but this one is on health and fitness apps. So, we take the 5 most popular health and fitness apps and give them ratings depending on their password security practices. So, if you use a health and fitness app, it might be on this list. So, something you might want to double check there. And lastly, how to use the data breach report in Bitwarden. So this details exactly how to use the report and what to do with the information that it provides you. So interesting if you want to double check exactly how secure your information is online. And next, we'll hop on over to our news feed. So, this first article, I think you can notice that this is in German. So, we were highlighted by a German publishing outlet called Heiss Online. I probably pronounced that incorrectly. This title roughly translates to From Scratch to a Password Manager, Some Effort, Great Security Gain. If that's incorrect, you can blame Google Translate, but it does detail how to go from absolutely no password management solution to using Bitwarden for your password manager. So, an interesting article for sure. Next, there was an article written by a Microsoft Teams engineer about how to handle password and two-factor authentication. When using multi-factor authentication, it can get a little chaotic at times. So this details how to use multi-factor authentication with Bitwarden and how to better organize some of that madness. Next is an article that actually highlights an interview from our founder, Kyle Spirin, and it details 5 things every American business leader should do to shield themselves from a cyber attack. So, super interesting if you want to learn a little bit more about our founder, our company in general, and so get some good best practices. This is an article you should check out. Next, we were highlighted as one of the 6 best Mac Safari extensions for students. So, thinking more about our free offering, we were ranked alongside Grammarly, which I use all the time. So, I feel like that's kind of an honor. So, interesting to see there. And lastly, Business Leader cited our 2023 Passwords Decision Survey. So, this survey polled 800 IT decision makers across a wide range of industries, and we reported on those findings there. So one of the data points that they pulled for their title is that 79% of IT decision makers want a company password manager implemented, which is definitely the majority. So interesting to see there. I like that they pulled some of the data that we had and kind of summarized it to their own means. So that's all for the newsfeed. So you can always check this out at bitwarden.com/newsfeed and find all the links for those articles there. And next, I'll hand it off to Help.
Hey there. My name is Sai. I'm the technical training manager here at Bitwarden. So just a couple of quick highlights here on help and training. So help is our help center is the main place to look for product documentation. So a couple I want to highlight is the field guide to two-step login and how to create a send using Bitwarden Send. It's also where you can find documentation on our releases. So at the very top of the help is our release notes. So I know we had just mentioned some things didn't quite make it to this presentation. It's another great resource for you to check out. And I'll actually drop that in the chat. And then we also have our learning center. So as opposed to help, which is going to be primarily text-based, we also have our learning center, which is going to provide you with different videos, walkthroughs, guides, things of that nature. And it's going to give you different information that you can filter by if you're a beginner, an admin, or a power user. So I've highlighted here a few or one of each of those kind of different areas. So everything from how to create your Bitwarden account to rolling out Bitwarden to your organization. And then in addition to the documentation in the Help Center, we also have a video on using Bitwarden Send. So just another way to consume that information. I know some people like to read, some people like to watch videos. So it's a great resource that you have. And then I'll hand it over to DW.
Thanks, Sai. Is there still a hiss on my mic?
A little bit, but
bit.
it sounds better than last time.
Oh my goodness. I'm just going to quickly switch it to my MacBook microphone and see if that helps. Does that help at all?
Yeah, the hiss is gone, but you got the room echo that you usually get from using a integrated device. So get you a gaming headset.
Well, I have a mic, but I think the cord's kaputs. Anyways, is this, should I have someone else read my section?
No, it sounds good. You sound great.
No, it's fine.
All right, thanks everyone. All right,
Perfectly
so
acceptable.
I'm DW, but on the technical marketing team, work with the community and coordination with Jason joining us today. I just wanted to share a little example of how our community is so awesome and always receptive and welcoming and providing lots of help to each other. We have an awesome support team internally, but we also have fantastic community support. So in this situation, we had someone asking about our family plan specifically, and Jason jumped in and gave them some information about where to get started. And I just wanted to add a note here that if anyone is on the call today and you do have a team that's using Enterprise, make sure you check in with them. You do get a complimentary family plan. It just helps protect you 24 hours a day instead of clocking out, throwing your shield away. It's a great way to keep that protection going around the clock. And then if you want to take it to the next level, there are lots of ways to get involved with the Bitwarden community. So if you head over to bitwarden.com/get-involved, you can contribute to code. We have a forum, part of the forum for proposing code contributions. You can help translate. Bitwarden is available in about 50 different languages. So if it's not yet in your language, let us know. There's links on that page. If you think there's a way to make Bitwarden better, like we saw Eric's suggestion in the chat there, we love to hear that stuff. So please drop by and drop a feature request. A dedicated Ask the Bitwarden community section, a mobile program where you can get fixes early and check out new features. We also have surveys and user research that is ongoing, and you can find out about other events such as this one. And if you want to take it a step further and you're thinking about becoming part of the Bitwarden team, we have some great positions available right now like integration engineer, software engineer, and sales administrator. And even if you don't see something that is up your alley, there's a general interest form on there. So just reach out, let us know how you think you might fit with the team. We would love to hear from you. And lastly, events. So we have a couple key events coming up. Our regular weekly demo, so every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as our annual Open Source Security Summit. This is the third time that we're running it. A lot of great speakers lined up. You're going to hear from some awesome individuals from Proton. We have Kevin Mitnick. We have a bunch of, we have Bitdefender. We have Greenpeace, CryptPad, Cryptomator. So if you haven't registered, register now. It's going to be a lot of good communities coming together. And then a week after that, so super close, Bitwarden Developer Forum, you're going to hear directly from our developer team as well as a couple of our community developers who work with the Bitwarden codebase. So be sure to sign up for that. And that is it from my end. So thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you. And as we're nearing the end of our session, I do want to highlight one more thing. If you've been a part of these Vault Hour sessions before, this is kind of standard, but we typically do a Bitwarden store giveaway. So if you enter, you'll have the opportunity to win some of this really cool swag. I typically use the tumbler all of the time, so I can absolutely recommend that, but everything else is pretty great. So to enter, just visit bitwarden.com/shop and you'll fill out the contact form there down at the bottom of the page. And you'll just say that you heard about the giveaway during Vault Hours 30. To be considered for the giveaway, you'll need to submit the contact form within 24 hours of now. And there's no repeat winners. So if you've won before, please refrain from submitting yourself for consideration again. And all winners will be notified via email, so keep an eye on that inbox. And with that, thank you everyone for joining. We'll stay on the line for some questions or comments. Just wanting to make sure that any questions that you have will be answered. But thank you again for joining. Yeah, great to see everyone on board.